All right. Good morning. Here's everybody. I was wondering where everyone was. Have you guys been in a hot shop before? Never? Well, welcome to our hot shop. Hot shop is a term for a glass blowing studio because we work with the glass at really high temperatures and it's really hot in here. The furnace right there holds all the clear molten glass inside. There's about 1,000 pounds of glass inside a big ceramic pot inside the furnace, and the glass sits in there at about 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. That's around 1,200 degrees Celsius. So it's clear molten glass that they're taking out of the furnace. It just doesn't look clear because it's really hot. It glows orange. But Gabe over here has a solid rod with a little bit of clear glass on the end of it that's encasing a rod of color. They're doing what's called pulling cane. So this is cane. We just made some purple. It's just these big stretched out bits of glass. So they look like, well, here's some. If you take color, encase it in clear, and you pull the glass and stretch it into long, thin pieces, you can line them up like a bunch of pencils and roll them up onto a pipe to make stripes on a pattern of a piece that you're making. So they're making a bunch of cane right now. When glass is hot, it's stretchy, so they're gonna take this rod that Gabe has with the black hat, that's Gabe. He's getting it ready to stretch it out into a long, skinny, like a rope. It's called pulling cane. So that's what we're doing right now. We're really just getting started for the day. So all they've done so far is make some purple cane over here next to me. All of the glass looks orange when it's hot, but as it cools, the color that it actually is will come through a little more. So I'm not sure what color Gabe has over there right now. It looks orange. Oh, it's red. It's red, but it looks orange. So right now, Gabe is getting the bit of glass ready to stretch it out, and we have Sarah helping him. She's got what's called a post. We're going to attach the post to the glass on the end of Gabe's rod, and then they'll pull those away from each other. It will stretch the glass out into a long, skinny rope to make our cane. So glass blowing is all about temperature and timing. They're going to line up the temperatures with the timing that they're going to attach the pieces so that they can pull and stretch it apart. We've got these little wooden ladders on the ground because the glass is still really hot even when they're pulling and stretching it. So they're laying the glass on this thing so that the pieces can kind of cool down. Eventually they'll have a big long stick of glass that they'll break into pieces like these ones over here. And they can use those later to add a pattern to the pieces that they're going to make. So we're doing some prep work right now, first thing in the morning. Once we have all of our cane ready, they can start using it to make the pieces they want to make. And for those of you that haven't been in a hot shop before, I can try to give you some better visuals of what's going on in here. So if we could put up the slide for the furnace, please. This will kind of give you a better idea of what's inside our furnace. That holds all the clear glass. It's powered by natural gas and forced air. It runs all the time, and when it's full, it holds about 1,000 pounds of clear molten glass inside. We use that to melt the glass, the clear glass, and then we take it out of there and start to melt it and use it. When it's hot, the glass is stretchy and molten and malleable. So right now they've got a little bit of glass color encased in some clear. This will be red, but when the glass is hot, they're gonna pull it and stretch it apart. It looks like rope that they're stretching. So the right temperature and the right timing, Gabe is slowly backing up, and this is stretching more and more. You can see the hotter part is glowing, and the colder it gets, the more it looks like the color it's supposed to be. So the thinner parts are colder. The hotter parts over here are glowing more because they're still really hot. But this is gonna be a long red string of glass that they're gonna chop up into little pieces like these. And then they'll use those on their pieces to make patterns. The thinner the glass gets, the faster it cools. So as they stretch this out more and more, they've got to pull a little bit harder until right now they're kind of both pulling, creating this tension that's stretching the glass. And now we've got this long stick of red glass. They're going to chop it into their little pieces and use it. So I've got this little piece that shows you, this is kind of the idea of what we're gonna do, something similar. If you want stripes on the glass, you have to make the color pattern with the stripes. So they're gonna roll up all those little pieces, kind of like if you lined up pencils on a table like this, if you can see what I'm doing over here. You roll this up onto a piece and it creates the stripes. So they're getting ready to make some pieces with some stripes on them by pulling cane and making all of these little pieces. Team is going to pull a couple more rods of cane so that we have like a rainbow array of colors, and they're going to make some glass pitchers with rainbow cane stripes for Pride Month. So we're getting all of the cane ready. We've got our purple and our red. They're going to do an orange and a yellow, and then we've got the other colors already ready. So an example of what we're going for over here, I don't want to move them around, but we've got a bunch of different colors. They're going to line them up and roll over them to make stripes. If you can see these over here, a bunch of different colored cane pieces. And so what they're doing once they take the glass out of the furnace is heating it up in what's called the reheating chamber or the glory hole. Could we show that diagram on the screen, please? So once the glass comes out of the furnace, to heat the glass up and pull it and stretch it and do all the things that they're doing, they're using our reheating chamber, also called the glory hole. It's also powered by natural gas and forced air, and it's used to reheat the glass to keep it from breaking. If glass gets too cold too quickly, it cracks, so they have to reheat it and keep it up to a certain temperature, above 1,000 degrees. The inside of the glory hole is about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, and that helps reheat the glass once they take it out of the furnace. The colored glass comes in bars like this. So this is a little bar of orange glass. They preheat these in what's called the garage, or a color box, which is like a tiny oven. You have to preheat these chunks because if you put them into the glory hole at 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, when they're cold, they'll explode from temperature shock. So you have to preheat them to about 1,000 degrees, and then get a little bit of clear glass to pick them up on the end of a rod. And then you can melt them into the reheating chamber and start to put clear glass on top of it and stretch it out. So it's a layering process. You start with the color in the middle, and now Gabe is about to take the color rod and put it into the furnace to get an encasement of clear glass around it. When he comes out, it'll look like it's orange, but that's just because the clear glass is 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's glowing, molten, moving hot glass. All the glass looks orange at that temperature. But right now, Gabe is using what's called the pipe cooler, which is just like a water trough that cools off the metal that he's holding onto. It makes it easier to hold the pipe up higher. Water just cools the metal, so it's easier to work with the glass. So they're getting ready to pull another rod of cane. Gabe has the color on the inside encased with clear glass. They might encase it with a little bit more clear glass, and then they'll pull it and stretch it like they did earlier to make the red and the purple. Gabe is taking the clear glass, or taking the glass to get another encasing of clear around it. Glass blowing is a layering process because it's working at such a high temperature, it's molten, you can only get so much at a time. So we build it up in layers. He let that bit of glass cool down to where it was stiff enough that he could put that back in the furnace and get another layer of clear around it. And that's just building up the layers so we have enough material to really stretch it out to the length that they want to make our nice long rod of cane. Sarah's getting the post ready, which is going to be the bit of glass that gets attached to the other side of this blob of glass that Gabe has on the end of his rod. Hot glass sticks to other hot glass. So they'll stick these two rods together, and then one of them will take one of the rods and walk this way. The other one will take the other rod and walk the opposite way, and that will pull and stretch the glass out to make these long, thin strands of color. Over there, he's getting the. So he picked up one of the color rods. The color rods is like how we start with the color. It's just a rod of glass that has different metals in it that make the color. So he's getting that next color ready so that after they finish this pull, that one is ready to start. So he's just kind of getting a head start for them for the next one because they've got a couple of these to do. Yeah. So it's kind of a team effort. So these guys will finish this one, and then he'll hand that one off to them so that they can. Yeah. All right, so Sarah has the post. Gabe has got the hot bit of glass he's going to attach to the post. You can see it's hot and moving and stretching. He'll hand one of the posts to Sarah, and they'll walk away from each other, which will stretch the glass out, make it a nice long piece of glass that has this color in the middle. I think this is the red one. Just kidding. This is orange. Yeah, I got a couple more colors to do. All the colors look orange when they're really hot, but as they cool, you'll see the color come out. So this is going to be an orange. It looks, I mean, it's confusing because it looks orange when it's hot, but also when this one cools down, it will be orange. But the other ones are purple and red over there. We lay them on these little wooden ladders because the glass is still about 1,000 degrees, even when it's stiff and cold right now. So they lay it on the wooden ladders because the wood is less aggressive than just laying it right on the concrete. So we've got a little piece of cane that's purple that I have going around for you guys to see. That's kind of what we're making right now, different colors, but we're making these strands of glass that are going to be lines on the pieces. So if you want a pattern on the glass, you have to make the pattern. So if we wanted stripes, we have to make the pieces of cane that will roll onto a clear bubble of glass, and that will melt into the glass to make stripes of color. So they're going to be making rainbow pitchers because it's June, it's Pride Month, so they're making some rainbow pitchers today. We're just getting all of the color for the stripes for the rainbow pattern made this morning. Once we have all of those, they can start to make the pitchers. Oh yeah, so you guys might have just seen him spray some water into the furnace. The water helps pop the bubbles that are on the surface of all the glass inside there so that when they get glass out of the furnace, they don't get a bunch of little bubbles inside. So when you get layers of glass out of there, it can create bubbles from some of the glass falling back in. There's just a big bowl inside the furnace that holds all the glass inside of it, like a giant salad bowl full of honey. So when they scoop it out, they create little bubbles from when it dribbles back in there, and they don't want to pick those bubbles up onto the piece. So if you spray water on the surface, the water will pop the bubbles on the surface of the glass. So each time they get glass out of the furnace is called a gather, and before each gather, they'll spray the furnace with water so that they don't pick out any bubbles. So Gabe was waiting for this bit of glass to get colder so he could put it back in the furnace to get another layer of glass. Thanks.
Why is that one turned off?
We're not using it today. So we have the furnaces that stay on 24/7, but then we also have the reheating chambers, these big circular ones Those are turned on and off each day, but the furnaces are the ones that stay on all the time. The reheating chambers get turned on and off because we only need them on when we're using them to make something. If the furnace gets turned off, all the glass gets cold and we can't use it. So they have to keep the furnaces on 24/7, but everything else gets turned on and off in the studio. It's all run on natural gas and forced air. All right, so we're getting ready to do another cane pull. These strands, or these like little pieces of glass, are called cane. And this is called cane pulling because we're pulling and stretching the glass out into these long pieces that will become the cane that we add to the piece for the stripes. So if you missed what I was showing you guys earlier, this is kind of what the end goal. We're trying to make the stripes that we can add onto the piece. So if you want a pattern in the glass, you have to make the pattern and then add it to clear glass. So they're making the components to create the stripes. So here we're doing another cane pull. Gabe has both of the rods. He's stretching them out. He'll hand one to Sarah, and then they'll walk away from each other, and that's going to stretch the glass out into this long strand. As the glass gets thinner, it gets colder. And as it gets colder, it gets stiffer. So the thinner parts are going to cool down faster, and they're going to take the thick parts of this and continue to stretch it until it's all the same length and it's all cold and stiff. As it cools, the color will come out more. I believe this is a yellow. But when glass is hot, it's really stretchy. So this is all still pretty hot. You can see it's stretching, it's moving. As they stretch it more and more, it'll get stiffer and it'll stay in that straight line until we have a long strand of yellow glass color that we can cut up into little pieces to create stripes on the pictures that we're going to make. So now that this bit of cane is colder, we can cut it into pieces. You can see the thicker parts towards the ends are still a little bit hotter, so they look more orange. But the colder parts are starting to look more yellow or orange, like a yellowish orange. So these guys are gonna start getting all the cane chopped up and prepped. That'll take just a second. So they're gonna get that all cut up. While they're getting all that prep work done, we can show you some other things that this studio does. So while we're getting that ready, let's play the Kids Design Glass video.
Like art through the ages, glass has always been sort of made by designer and maker. And so to highlight that relationship, we created Kids Design Glass, where kids age 12 and under can make a drawing and submit it to us. We'll make 2 pieces, give one to the family, and we'll keep one to put in our collection and build the exhibition that has been Kids Design Glass.
We get a huge stack of drawings and we sift through them to pick the ones that we can make and the ones that are interesting.
200-300 drawings a month, so we get a stack of drawings.
We go through each one. It's a drawing and a story about the drawing.
Probably the most unique drawings are the ones that really stick out. The ones that aren't like based on a character that they've already seen. The ones that come straight from their imagination.
Usually kids by that age, they're not really tainted by like pop culture and outside influences. They kind of like what they like.
My original idea for the rainbow marshmallow, when the marshmallow melts, what comes out are their tears. And this one cries rainbows. Like in the inside, it's all rainbow. It was the first time that I was like kind of made contact into like the glass blowing world. And what was really fun about it was knowing that a piece that I've come up with that is like part of my self-expression was like interesting enough for others to like incorporate it into the real world.
Being in a creative environment, I think that builds self-esteem, and the fact that they're going to have this thing that they're going to have the rest of their lives of something that they had as a child, and then knowing that they're actually like in a museum collection, which is pretty incredible when you're under 12 years old.
If any other kids are entering the program, then I'd say I really hope that your art gets chosen. It is really mesmerizing to see the details being put on. I was just very happy that the Hot Shop team actually chose my art. Who knows, maybe if you're timing it just right, you could actually get up there when your art is like being displayed up there.
For 20 years, we've made some wild things. It's so free, and I would say loose, but what we really pay attention to is making sure that we're capturing all the details.
There's so many challenges in making the kids design drawings, and I think that's something that maybe the average viewer wouldn't notice.
A lot of these objects are very fragile and are just different than any of the other glass I usually work on.
The way the kids draw them, they just have no idea of what, you know, glass can do, so they just draw it however their mind imagines this object.
We're talking with them, making sure that we're seeing the color the same way, making sure that, you know, the eyes are on one side or are they supposed to be on both sides.
Appendages and weird helmets, they're all great challenges and things that we wouldn't necessarily run into without this program. I think it's inspiring for us as glassmakers, and I hope it's inspiring for the kids doing the drawings. I hope the kids kind of see that their creativity is this muscle that they need to exercise.
One of the best parts about the program is seeing the kid in the front row giving us tips on how we can make it better or things they don't like that we're doing. They have a voice here.
I designed the lion crab in 2011. Just recently, we went back to the museum, and seeing my piece on display at the museum was just incredible.
I mean, we have times where people come in the crowd and some young adult, you know, in their 20s or early 30s is like, hey, you made my kids design glass, and they bring out their phone and show us a picture, and it's them like 10 years old, and you know, it's to see the impact that we've made. I think every single one is special. Yeah.
All right, so the team is getting set up and ready to make some pictures that they're gonna make that have these stripe designs on them. So these little pieces of cane that they've been pulling will be the stripes on the pieces. Sarah is getting this ready for us to line the cane up on top of it. We're gonna line up the pieces of cane like pencils in a row. If you can see me over here, kind of like these little pieces are gonna get lined up in a row, kind of like pencils next to each other. And then you can take a clear bit of glass on the end of a rod, and you just stick it on here and roll it through, and it'll roll up these pieces of cane to create a layer of color on the outside that looks like striped patterns. So they're gonna create that pattern, and then they're gonna blow the glass out into some pitchers, like a little lemonade pitcher or something like that. They're using rainbow patterns because it is June, which is Pride Month, so they're gonna make some rainbow patterned pitchers. So this morning we were getting all prepped, making all the cane so that we can start making the pitchers, and now they're just getting all of the cane lined up to start making the first one. So Trent over there at the table is chopping up all the cane into equal length sizes. And Gabe is over here lining up all the cane on our steel tray that we will put into the fire to heat up so that we can add it to our clear glass, blow a bubble, and shape it out into a glass pitcher. And I believe these will be going into the museum's gift shop where you can buy them once they're all finished. These pieces, when they're made, have to cool down slowly, so they won't be in the store today, but later this week or maybe next week, they'll be ready in the store to be bought if you're interested in one. Yeah, so they're getting prepped. They'll get started soon. That video that just played a second ago, if you missed some of it, it was a video about the Kids Design Glass. So here at the Museum of Glass, one of our long-standing programs is the Kids Design Glass once a month in the Hot Shop. They select or it's created to inspire the youth with the fine arts. Once a month, the Hot Shop selects a winner from the Kids Design Glass submission forms that we have. They're invited with their families to watch their drawing be created here in the Hot Shop into a glass sculpture. So 2 pieces are created, one for our permanent collection and one for the family to keep. So we have applications for the Kids Design Glass out in the Grand Hall if you're interested in trying that out. They'll draw a picture, and then the team will look at all the pictures and pick which ones they're gonna make. Yeah. But there's also some other things that we can talk about while these guys are getting all ready. We have a live stream here at the Museum of Glass. If you're ever wanting to see what's going on here, but you can't physically be in the building, you can watch our online live streaming. It's from the website. You go onto the website and there's a link that goes to our live stream YouTube channel. So days that you can't come here, you can go onto the YouTube live stream channel and watch what's going on online. Yeah, if you're ever curious to know what's happening here in the Hot Shop, Wednesday through Sunday, 10 to 5 p.m. under the Hot Shop tab or the YouTube Museum of Glass channel. So the museumofglass.org has a Hot Shop tab that will take you straight to the live stream, or you can just go to YouTube for the Museum of Glass channel to find it there. We also have Family Day every second Saturday of the month. Activities are hosted by the education team. And lastly, we've got Third Thursday. Every third Thursday of the month, the Museum of Glass is open, free to the public from 5 to 8 p.m. Hilltop youth artists demonstrate their skill sets here in the Hot Shop. And the Hilltop Artists is a local youth organization dedicated to enhancing the lives of the youth through the medium of glass. They work with the Museum of Glass a lot. So third Thursday of every month, you can come in and see some young people blowing some glass, learning how to blow glass and use that as a medium to enhance the lives of younger people. All right, so these guys are getting ready to do our first cane roll-up to make a piece. You can see the cane right here has been placed in a specific color order on that little slab. They're gonna put that into the fire in our reheating chamber to heat those up. That way they can take the bubble that Gabe is working on the left side of the studio. They're gonna use that bubble to roll the cane up to create something similar in design to this piece where it has these stripes. So we're working towards that now. And once they have the stripes on there, they'll start to blow the bubble and the shape out to make a pitcher, like a lemonade pitcher. But these guys will be doing a cane roll-up pretty soon. I believe we have a cane roll-up video. If we could play that on the screen, please, just so everyone could get a better idea of what we're working towards. Artists can use cane to create pattern lines in the surface of the glass. The cane is pulled out into long ropes of glass and chopped down to rework into the process, which is what we've been doing today, is chopping up all the pieces to start doing our cane roll-up. But if we can get that cane roll-up video up on the screen, if you have a second. Yeah, so if you direct your attention to the screen, this will give you an idea of what we're about to do. Well, this part of the video is showing what we already did. We already pulled the cane. So they already did this part. And we're moving on to the next part after the part in this video where it shows this. They'll show you the next part where we'll be chopping the pieces up to roll the glass onto the pieces to make our stripes. So Gabe's doing our cane roll-up right now. He's rolling the clear glass on top of those pieces of cane. Hot glass sticks to hot glass. So they preheated the little pieces of cane on that tray. He took the hot glass and he rolled it on the tray to pick up the cane. And now we have a striped pattern on a clear bubble. We're going to start really melting the cane into the clear glass to create the pattern. There's a bubble inside the clear glass on the end of that rod, so he's using a blowpipe. It's like a big metal straw. He's melting the cane into it. They'll start shaping it and blowing the bubble. Before he did the cane roll-up, he used some calipers to make sure it was the right size for that amount of cane. So they measured it a little better than just eyeballing it. They used some calipers to measure the width of the clear glass in relation to all of those pieces that were lined up in a row so that it picked up all of them at the right amount. And now that he's picked them all up, he's using the glory hole to melt those pieces of cane back down to smooth out the surface until we have a striped pattern over our bubble and clear glass. So all those colors, as they heat up and get hotter again, they're gonna turn orange, but they're gonna be that rainbow pattern you saw them on the little pad that they were on. As the glass gets hotter, it all turns orange. So they look all the same color right now, but that's just because they're all the same temperature. The color hides behind the heat. But you can see over there, Trent's getting some more of the cane ready. You can see all the different color cane that we have. So as the glass cools, you'll see that it looks like those different rainbow colors. And Gabe just used a mold to twist the colors. So instead of stripes, they're going to be like a swirled pattern of all those colors. So the glass, when it's hot, you can twist it, you can cut it, you can pull it and stretch it, all kinds of stuff. So he twisted it up to make those stripes spiral around, to make a spiral rainbow pattern. It's all pretty condensed down right now. But once he starts blowing that bubble, it'll stretch the glass out and you'll be able to see that color pattern a little better. But Gabe will shape the glass on one end of the bench while Sarah is blowing into the pipe on the other end and inflating the glass while Gabe shapes the glass. So it's a team effort. You're very limited to what you could do by yourself. There are things you can make as a glassblower on your own, but usually you're working with at least one other person, usually more than just one other person. We've got our team of glassblowers today. There's 4 of them today. 4 of them? And that's kind of your average size team for glassblowing. So Gabe is using a couple of our hand tools on the glass. When the glass is hot, you can cut through it. So he cut off the end of that cane roll-up. That way the lines go all the way to the end. There's a little gap in there from where those lines didn't touch together. So he cut off the little gap, and now all of those colors, they twist all the way to like a point that's going to be the bottom of the piece. So the piece is on the pipe sideways right now. If it were like some sort of cup shape, we're going to make a pitcher. So if it were the opening, the top of the piece is attached to the pipe, and the bottom of the piece is what's farthest away from the pipe. So they're working on it sideways right now. Eventually they'll flip it around the other way where they can work on the top. But for now, they're going to start shaping the bottom half of the piece, which will be the part that's furthest away from the pipe. So they're making it sideways at the bench, if that makes sense. The more we blow the glass out, the bubble expands and stretches the glass out, makes it thinner. And the thinner the glass gets, the faster it cools. So their working window isn't very long. As soon as they take this piece of glass off the bench and put it back into the reheating chamber, that just means it's gotten too cold. So their working window is less than a minute each time. They're working on it while it's hot and heating it up when it gets cold. The glass closest to the pipe is going to cool down faster than the glass farthest away. So that torch helps equalize the temperature, getting the part closest to the pipe hotter so that it all expands equally. That's called a fluffy torch because the flame is really fluffy. There's other torches that are used for different processes, but we're not using that one right now. The fluffy torch is going to help equalize the temperature of all of the glass so that it all blows out and moves evenly at the same temperature. Here, Gabe is using a tool called the jacks to carve in a restriction right off the head of the pipe. That restriction line is like a score mark, so we can get the glass off the pipe later. So no matter what we're making, we've got to use that tool called the jacks to get in that jack line. That will allow us to remove the piece from the pipe when we're ready. So you can see the cane coming out a little bit more. This is starting to take shape a little bit. Glass blowing is something that you do a little bit at a time because as it gets cold, it gets stiff. You can only do so much to it until it gets cold. Then you have to heat it back up. So they're kind of going back and forth between the reheating chamber and the bench to work on the glass as it fluctuates between hot and cold. And cold is a relative term. If it's under 1,000 degrees, that's cold. So when it's under 1,000 degrees, it's not moving. So anything where the glass is not hot enough to move is cold, but it's still somewhere around 1,000 degrees. So relative term when I say cold. But the tool that Gabe's using right now is newspaper. It's folded up and soaked in water. So a pad of wet newspaper is a glass blowing tool. You can see the steam coming off of it, and that's really what's shaping the glass. There's a thin layer of steam in between the paper and the glass. And that's what allows us to use the newspaper on this really hot glass, is the steam. That makes it to where we can hold the newspaper. It doesn't get hot in your hand. So they're working on the bottom of the piece right now. It's going to be a pitcher, a rainbow patterned pitcher for Pride Month. They flatten the bottom of it. They're kind of working on that shape. And once they're done working on the bottom, they'll take the piece off the pipe to work on the top. So the team is about to do what's called a punty transfer. The punty is the rod that we're going to transfer the piece onto so we can flip it around and work on the top. So the top is what's holding the piece onto the blowpipe right now. To work on the top of it, we have to take it off of the blowpipe. So we're going to transfer it to a different rod by attaching that rod to the bottom of the piece. The punty, P-U-N-T-Y, is the rod that Sarah has. She's going to bring it to Gabe, who will attach it to the bottom of the piece. Hot glass sticks to other hot glass. So they're lining up their temperature and timing so that they can stick the punty to the piece and then break the piece off the blowpipe. So at the right temperature, if you put a drop of water on the glass, it will crack. So we're going to strategically crack the glass in a specific spot and then tap on the blowpipe. The vibrations go into the weak spot and break it, which removes the piece from the blowpipe. And now it's attached to the punty, flipped around. Now we can work on the top of the piece. So they're done with the bottom. Now they want to fix up the top part. But if the bottom of the piece gets too cold, it will crack from thermal shock. So they still have to continually go back to the fire to reheat the glass to keep it all above temperature. That way it doesn't break. If the glass gets too cold too fast, thermal shock cracks the glass. If it gets too hot too fast, thermal shock also cracks the glass. So they have to keep it in this happy middle temperature. If they have it out here too long and then try to put it in the fire, it could crack. That's why we have to preheat some of the color pieces and things we're going to use, because if they're cold and you put it straight in the fire, it breaks. So there's a lot of prep work involved with blowing glass. Most of the morning we've been doing the prep work to start making these pieces that we're doing now. For anyone that joined us later, just so you have an idea of what we're doing what's called cane roll-ups and making them into pitchers. The cane is these rods of glass. So you take a piece of colored glass and you stretch it out into little long pieces and then chop the little pieces up and roll them up on a bubble. And that creates the lines. They took the lines and they twisted them. So it's going to be a color pattern that's a twisted rainbow pattern all the way down the body of our pitcher. And they're working on the shape of the pitcher right now. They'll put a handle on it later. And then these pieces will get sold in the gift shop once they're cooled down, checked out, made sure they're all good. They'll be sent to the gift shop. But we're making rainbow patterned pitchers and things today. Since it is June, it's Pride Month, so we're celebrating recognizing Pride by making rainbow colored pieces. So when glass is hot, you can cut through it with scissors. That's what Gabe is doing right now. When we broke the glass off the other pipe, we did break it so it was jagged, uneven at the top. Gabe just heated up the glass and took some scissors and trimmed off that uneven part from the top. And now the top of the piece is nice and symmetrical and uniform. As the glass cools, it gets stiffer, so they had to do that part when it was really hot. It's kind of tricky because the hotter the glass is, the more it moves around. So they were sculpting a moving target, but as it gets colder, it gets stiffer. So they had only so much time to do it. The team is making all of what they're doing look really easy, but it's a pretty tricky thing that takes years of practice. They cleaned up the top, and now they're going to work on the shape of the piece. They've got to make the pitcher have like a little spout and open it up a little bit more. So they're going to take some different tools and refine that shape. Gabe's hand is really close to the molten hot glass, so there's a lot of radiating heat coming off the glass. That's why he has Trent over here with the drywood paddles, shielding his hands from the radiating heat. It might be blocking some of your view, but it's necessary for Gabe to be able to do what he's doing, to have those drywood paddles blocking the radiating heat from the glass on his hands. So for those of you that might have joined us a little bit later, I can start from the beginning of what a hot shop is. So hot shop is what we call a glass blowing studio. It's called that because the glass is hot. We've got our furnace. If we could pull up the furnace diagram to give you guys a better idea of where we start and how we start. We've got 2 furnaces in here. Each one of them holds about 1,000 pounds of clear molten glass inside a large crucible, which is like a big giant bowl made of high fire ceramic. It runs on natural gas and forced air, and they're on 24/7. So the 2 furnaces we have in here are on 24/7 to keep the glass molten. We scoop glass out of the furnace the same way you'd get honey out of a jar with a stick or a knife. And then you can blow bubbles into it, you can shape it, pull it, and stretch it. Right now, Sarah has a bit of hot glass with a bubble in it that they're adding to the piece, stretching it, pulling it, sculpting it to make it into our handle. So Gabe's gonna stretch that and fold it, attach it, shape it, and now we have a handle on our pitcher. They've got to make sure that the glass is hot enough that they stick together. So they're gonna go back into what's called the reheating chamber or the glory hole. That sits at about 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit, and it's just a big barrel of fire. It's used for reheating the glass. As the glass gets thinner, it gets colder, and as it gets colder, it gets stiffer. So they reheat it, that way they can continue working on it. If the glass gets too cold, it breaks. So that's also used to maintain the temperature, that way they can work on the glass without it breaking or shattering. The reheating chamber is made of a high fire ceramic lining on the inside that keeps it very insulated. So that the big barrel right in front of them right there that they keep going back to heat up the glass, that's our reheating chamber. Those get turned on and off each day. But the furnaces that keep the glass molten are on all the time, 24/7. Right now they're making the spout for our pitcher by heating up a specific part with a torch, making that specific part hot enough that they can kind of pull and shape that little spout. So the piece is just about done. They're getting ready to take it off of our punty, which is the rod that we transferred the piece onto. If we did it at the right temperature, we can remove the punty from the bottom of the piece. And once the piece is off of our transfer rod, it has to cool down slowly. So glass goes through a process called annealing, which will slowly cool the glass down. If it cools too quickly, it breaks, so we have to cool it slowly. That way it doesn't break. Team is getting ready to remove the piece from the punty and load it into what's called the annealing oven. So glass goes through a molecular change as it cools. That has to be done in a controlled environment. So our annealing oven will allow us to cool the glass down slowly and systematically over time. That way it doesn't break. The longest part of the process for glass blowing is that annealing process. This will probably stay in there overnight. Tomorrow we can take it out of the annealer, and it'll be in one piece and cold to the touch. Right now it's around 1,000 degrees, so we've got to put it into this oven that's also about 1,000 degrees, and then start from there, slowly cool it down. To get it off the punty, they've got to put water on that connection and get it at the right temperature to where they can tap on the pipe. The vibrations will go through the pipe and into that weak spot and break it. It won't break the bottom of the piece, but it will break the punty off of the bottom of the piece. And then they'll use the torch to clean up that spot where it breaks so that it's not sharp. So water right on the punty right there. It should just take a little tap, and then we'll torch the bottom, load it away into the annealer, And then we'll see this piece again tomorrow. When it cools down, all of those stripes will be bright rainbow colors. The colors look kind of dull right now just because the piece is still around 1,000 degrees. But as it cools, those colors will really brighten up into bright, vibrant rainbow stripes. Well, let's give the team a big hand for our first piece of the day. Nice. So they're going to get set up to make another one of these. It'll take them a minute to get set up, but then we'll get started from the beginning. We'll do it all again. So the team here is going to get reset to start making another one of these rainbow pictures. If you missed the beginning of that last piece, we're going to do what's called a cane roll-up. So how we get the lines in the glass. The artists use cane to create pattern lines in the surface of the glass. Often, cane is pulled out into long ropes of glass and chopped down to be reworked into the process. So could we see the cane roll-up video so that we can get a better idea of what's about to happen? All right, so the team is getting ready to do another what's called a cane roll-up. If you want a pattern on the glass, you have to create the pieces that make the pattern and then add them to the bubble. So we've got Trent over here on the left side of the studio getting the bubble ready, while the team in the middle is getting the pattern ready, and we're gonna put them together and that will create stripes on the piece. So cane is what we call these little pieces of colored glass that get turned into the stripes and pattern. So we're lining up our cane over here that we're going to roll up onto the bubble that Trent is getting ready. So it's a team effort. We're kind of getting everything started to make a rainbow striped pitcher that will get sold in the museum's gift shop. We're doing rainbow patterns because it is June, which is Pride Month, so we're getting ready to make some Pride-themed pieces today. Earlier this morning, we did what's called pulling cane, which is stretching the colored glass out into these long, thin pieces, chopping them up into these little pieces of cane that we're going to add to the pattern of our pieces that we're making. So this morning, they did all of the cane pulls, which looks like pulling taffy, basically. You get a blob of clear glass with the color, and you pull it and stretch it into these long, thin pieces, chop it up, and roll that onto the bubble of glass to make our pattern. So we're getting it ready to do our cane roll up. We've got all the pieces of cane on this little tray that we're going to put into the fire to get hot so that we can roll the clear molten glass, which Trent has over here, to create our pitcher. So Trent has our clear glass with a bubble inside of it. We've got some calipers to measure how big it needs to be in relationship to how many of these pieces of colored glass we need to add to it. So they've got a caliper that measures the width of both of those. Trent is about to take this clear glass with a bubble. He'll put it back into the furnace to get another layer of clear glass. That way we have more material to work with. And when that's hot and fresh out of the furnace, they'll roll it up onto the cane to create our pattern. So all of these techniques line up around temperature and timing. So these guys are all discussing how to line up the temperature and timing to make this work. We're going to get the pieces of cane hot in our reheating chamber while Trent is getting a fresh layer of clear glass on top of our bubble. They'll meet at the bench and they'll put that all together in just a minute, doing what's called a cane roll-up. So now we've got our fresh layer of clear glass. He's making sure it's the right size, getting it stretched out so it's the right width. And then also cooling the pipe down, because the metal can get hot after you put it into the furnace that keeps all the glass molten. He's just got a water trough over there. You put the metal into it and it cools it down so you can hold the pipe higher up, closer to the glass, which gives you better control. So they're getting ready to do the cane roll-up. They are literally going to roll the cane onto the bubble. Hot glass sticks to hot glass. So those bits of cane are now stuck to the surface. The team is going to work on melting in the cane so that it's all flush to the surface of the clear glass. So this table is called a marver, M-A-R-V-E-R. It's a steel top table they can use to roll the glass on, which will help to melt it all together and get it all flush to the surface. They're going to work on making sure all of those pieces of cane are in the right spot. And as the glass gets hotter, it gets softer. So they're going to soften those bits of cane and then roll it on the marver to get it all into the right place. Once it's all melted, they can start to blow the bubble and shape it into our pitcher. Now that we've got all of the cane melted into the clear glass, they're going to start to twist the glass, which will twist those cane. So instead of straight lines, we'll have the lines twisting all the way around the piece. But when glass is hot, it's really malleable. So they're twisting it, stretching it, pulling it, blowing it. This is going to twist that pattern up. He's turning the pipe inside this mold. And now those cane pieces are wrapped around the bubble in a twisted pattern. They're going to start to blow the bubble and shape the glass. So the team here is going to start blowing and shaping this bubble with the pattern on it into a shape that more closely resembles a pitcher. The bottom of the bubble is the tip of the bubble farthest from the pipe will be the bottom of the piece. So you're going to watch them make this sideways at the bench. The part of the pitcher that's the top is what's closest to the head of the pipe. So they're going to carve in a restriction line right off the head of the pipe, and that will show you where the top of the piece will be. So they're working on that. That restriction line right off the head of the pipe is called the jack line because the tool he's going to use is called the jacks. So the jacks, carving in the jack line right now, a restriction right off the head of the pipe. That restriction line will allow us to take the piece off the pipe later in the process. So they're carving that in with the jacks. You're seeing some teamwork here. We've got Gabe, who's our gaffer today, carving into it, while Trent, his assistant, is turning the pipe, and Sarah, at the other end of the bench, is blowing air into the pipe, all at the same time. So Gabe is the one in the black hat. He's our gaffer today. He began his glass career in 1996, working in production studios in the San Francisco Bay Area. He's been a visiting and demonstrating artist at glass studios around the world, including France, Sweden, Pilchuck Glass School, just to name a few. Elegant and refined, his personal work evokes strength and balance with their stacked geometric shapes. Relying on pure ability and technique, Feenan seeks to emphasize the importance of a skilled artist's hand in a machine-made world. So if we have any, could we show some of Gabe's work up on the screen? Yeah, Gabe is our lead glassblower today. Assisting him are Trent and Sarah to make these Pride-themed pictures that we're doing today. So up on the screen is some of Gabe's work. It shows some of those geometric stacked shapes. So the team is working on the bottom of the piece right now. They're flattening the bottom with a drywood paddle, pushing on the glass to create that flat spot. That way the pitcher has a way to sit on the table. Once they're done with the bottom, they'll want to work on the top. So they're going to get ready to start working on the top of the piece. To change the shape of the top, they have to remove the piece from the blowpipe. So they're going to do what's called a punty transfer. The punty, P-U-N-T-Y, is the rod that will transfer the glass onto. So we'll get that transfer rod, punty, ready. You can see that color pattern a little better on the piece now that it's blown out and it's a little bit colder and stiffer. That rainbow pattern. But Trent got just a little bit of glass out of the furnace. They're putting a little button on the bottom of the piece so that the punty has a place to attach. And every now and then, you'll see Gabe put the whole piece into the reheating chamber. That is called a flash. It's like a maintenance heat. If it gets too cold, the glass will crack. So we have to maintain a certain temperature, somewhere around 1,000 degrees at the coldest. If we get the glass too cold and we try to put it back into the fire, it will break from temperature shock. So we've got to flash the piece, which is like a maintenance heat, to make sure it stays up to temperature. That way it doesn't crack. So Sarah's getting the punty ready. She'll bring it over to Gabe, who will attach it to the bottom of the piece. The punty connection is really based off of temperature and timing. So at the right temperature, they can stick the punty to the piece, and at the right timing and temperature, they can remove the glass from the blowpipe. Hot glass will stick to other hot glass. So we're attaching the punty. And at the right temperature, if you put a drop of water on the glass, it creates a crack. So they're going to strategically place a drop of water on the line they carved in off the head of the pipe, which will make a tiny crack. They'll tap on the blowpipe, which will create vibrations that go into that weak spot, and it removes the piece from the pipe. Now we've flipped it around and we can work on the top. So now that we flipped the piece around, we can work on the top. We broke it off the blowpipe, so that top edge is a little bit uneven. Gabe is going to stretch and pull it out with some tools, like some tweezers, and then he'll take some shears and cut off that uneven part at the top. So when glass is hot enough, you can take scissors and cut through it. It's called trimming. So he's trimming the uneven, broken, jagged parts off the top. That way our picture is nice and even at the top there. Trent was using some drywood paddles to block the radiating heat from the glass from Gabe's fingers, so his hands didn't get too hot. But now that they've trimmed that, they can open up the top a little bit more and fine-tune the shape to make it more of a picture shape. We also need to put a handle on this piece, so they're going to get ready to put that on there pretty soon as well. So we can put the blades of the jacks in the opening, and if the glass is hot enough, you can apply pressure with the blades of the jacks, which will change the shape of the top of the piece. So they're fine-tuning the shape. Sarah's going to start getting a little bit of clear glass on the end of a blowpipe to create our handle. So our furnace there just holds about 1,000 pounds of clear molten glass. The glass sits in the furnace at around 2,200 degrees Fahrenheit. So when it comes out, it looks orange. So Sarah's getting some clear glass out of the furnace. It looks orange just because of its temperature, but that is clear molten glass. She's going to get a bubble started inside of this bit of glass, and then that will be added to our main body of the piece to create a handle for our pitcher. So glass blowing is really a team sport. You can see all three of these guys are getting everything ready to add to the piece. And now that that cane roll-up pattern is blown out and shaped, you can really start to see the colors coming out a little bit more. The colors are still a little bit dull just because of the temperature. The color hides behind the heat. So as the glass cools, the colors will come out more, but when it's hot, it all kind of looks orange. So that will be bright rainbow patterned twists all the way down the piece when it's cold. So here comes our handle. Hot glass sticks to hot glass. We stick it on there, cut it off the other pipe, and while it's hot and moving, Gabe can stretch it and pull it, sculpt it into our handle for our pitcher. And that pitcher was a bubble of glass before we stretched it out, so it's a hollow handle, so it's not too heavy. Now they've got the handle on there, they can fine-tune the shape and then work on the spout at the top of the pitcher. So they're using a torch to get that one spot really hot. That way they can carve out the spout. We have a little spout on our piece now. They're just going to fine tune it. And once they like the shape and the piece is done, they'll remove it from that punty, the transfer rod, the same way they got it off the blowpipe. So at the right temperature, they'll put a drop of water on the punty, which will shock that connection, and they can remove it. Torch the bottom of the piece where the punty breaks off. And as glass cools, it goes through a molecular change. So we have to cool the glass in a controlled environment. That process is called annealing. Our annealing ovens are these big black boxes on the edges of the studio. They're going to put the glass, the pitcher, into our annealer. And the annealer will systematically cool down slowly overnight. That way the glass can cool down slowly. That will allow it to cool slowly enough that it doesn't break from temperature shock. So the piece will go into the oven around 950 degrees and then systematically cool down starting from there until we can hold it. Right now the team is using this, what's called a fluffy torch. It's equalizing the temperature of the glass because the bottom of the piece is colder than the top. So they've got to get it all about the same temperature. That way they can remove it from the pipe without breaking it. So they're going to put a drop of water right there at the right temperature. It cracks the punty, that little bit of glass on the end of the rod. Trent's got some Kevlar wrapped tongs, which will allow us to grab the piece and load it into the annealer. We'll take it off the punty. That leaves a little sharp spot where the punty comes off. So we'll torch that spot, get rid of the sharp spot, and then we'll load that into the annealing oven where it will slowly cool down overnight. Stamping their signature on the bottom. Let's give the team a big hand for this beautiful little piece. So they'll put that in the annealer with everything else we'll make today. At the end of the day, when they're done and the annealer is full of pieces sitting in there at about 950 degrees, that's when they'll start the program that will systematically cool it down. And then tomorrow morning, they can take everything out and see how they did. These pieces are also going to get sold at the museum's gift shop. Since it's June, that's Pride Month, they're making a bunch of Pride-themed pieces today with rainbow patterns. So they just finished that one. They're going to start getting set up to make another one. They're just going to be making a bunch of these pictures. So if you missed the beginning, now you can see the beginning of the next one. But while they're getting everything set up, I'll do some announcements here. So the galleries are closed right now, you probably noticed. And that's because we're doing a big enhancement. They're currently closed until the fall because we're having a capital campaign to enhance our museum. So the Lino Tagliapietra archival collection pieces are going to be put into an updated new area to display. Can we get some of those photos up of the gallery being fixed up? We have some of those pictures showing what it's going to look like. So future home of the Lino Tagliapietra Legacy Gallery. We've got some photos to show you what we're working on in the galleries and why they're closed. So, revered from around the globe for his incredible manipulation of the material and his innovative creations, Tagliapietra has defined American glassblowing since coming to the Pacific Northwest in the early 1980s. No other artist can rival his impact on the field as a maestro, teacher, and mentor. Out of all the museums in the United States, Tagliapietra chose the Museum of Glass in Tacoma to display his archive and tell his legacy story. So they're working on renovating our galleries. That way we can display some new work by this renowned artist. Another announcement I can make is about our Third Thursday events that happen the third Thursday of the month, every month at the Museum of Glass. Every third Thursday of the month is open free to the public from 5 to 8 p.m. Hilltop artists, youth artists demonstrate their skill set here in the Hot Shop floor. And the Hilltop Artist is a local youth organization dedicated to enhancing the lives of the youth through the medium of glass. Could we see the Hilltop Artist video to learn a little more about that program?
Hi, I'm Zane Scott. I am a programs manager at Hilltop Artists, and I am born and raised in Tacoma, Washington.
I'm Katie. I'm from Tacoma, and I've been in the Hilltop Artists program for 2 years now.
We're here at the Museum of Glass for our annual Hilltop Artist Residency, and we're making centerpieces for our Better Futures Luncheon, which is our big fundraiser for the year. This year is a little special. It's Hilltop's 30th anniversary, so we're making mica bottles to commemorate the original Hilltop crew making bottles, and hopefully the mica sparkles will make them a little bit special.
I really like the design this year. The bottles are super like elegant, and there's a lot of variation in the shapes. It's really fun. It's like a great way to meet a lot of people. We all have a great time when we're working. So the program has helped a lot of kids over the years kind of find an outlet for themselves. It's great to, even if you're not like wanting to be a glassblower in life, it's great because it teaches you all like life skills that you're gonna need.
It's really rewarding. I see myself in all the students, so going back and trying to give them all the pointers that I felt like really helped me grow up and become more mature and responsible and confident.
Being with so many like instructors and so many kids that are like, they're in the same place as you, they're just trying to learn new things. It's a super nice way to grow.
Katie has been a great student, spent the last year on the flame working side of production, and is now switched over to the glass blowing side for this year, and is already exceeding, is one of like a great student, super kind, super helpful.
Yeah, it's super comforting to know that if this is the path I want to take in life, that there's a good transition between that.
Yeah, working with the museum has been, I would say, almost life-changing. It's working with them is seeing the best of the best and seeing how it's done, and seeing it like local too is really cool as for a local kid to see that like you have some of the best in your neighborhood, your backyard to go check out and learn from, and they're all so cool and kind, and I've learned so much as a glass blower and a person, and I also think the team learns from the students and they keep them young, and it's just a fun learning experience for everyone. You can do a lot. Like there's a lot that you can do here, and just believe in yourself and you'll be all right.
All right, so the team is getting ready to start another piece if you just joined us. I'll kind of start from the very beginning if any of you have never been in a hot shop before. So the hot shop is called the hot shop because the glass is really hot. We use furnaces that keep the glass molten. If we could see that furnace diagram up on the screen, please. Our furnaces are natural gas and forced air. They run 24 hours, 7 days a week, all the time, and they hold about 1,000 pounds of glass when they're full. So we have 2 furnaces in the studio. We've got one over there and one on this side. They're the big silver boxes, I guess you would call them. But this is our furnace. This is what holds all the glass inside in that opening. It's like a big giant salad bowl full of honey is what it looks like inside. But it's a big bowl full of molten glass. You scoop it out the same way you would get honey out of a jar with a stick. So it sits in there at about 2,100 degrees Fahrenheit, which is around 1,200 degrees Celsius. And that's where it all starts. So we start with clear glass, that's like our blank canvas, and then we can use color that is made by chemists to add to the glass to give it different colors. So we start with bars of color that we buy from the glass color and supply store. You preheat them in an oven, and then you can add them to the clear glass to give it color. So this morning we did what's called pulling cane, which is stretching glass into these long, skinny rods and then chopping those rods into little pieces. We call that cane. If you want to add color to your piece, or if you want to add a pattern, you have to create the pattern. So we've got our cane pulling video playing up on the screen right now to give you an idea of how these patterns were made. We chop the pieces up to make the lines, but this is how the lines are made. You get the hot glass, you attach it to 2 different rods, and then you pull and stretch those 2 rods apart. You stretch it out like taffy. When glass is hot, it's molten and malleable, so as it gets colder, it gets stiffer. So while it's hot, they pull and stretch the glass to make these long pieces, And then they chopped those pieces into little pieces to create cane for a cane roll-up. So this is what our team did this morning. And the video will progress and show you the next part that they're going to do, called a cane roll-up. So this is what we're headed towards right now. We've got our bubble and our plate with all the cane on it. Trent, over there in the black, has our bubble with clear glass. He just got a fresh layer of clear on top. And he's stripping off the extra that we don't need so that it's the right size. We've got some calipers that measure so that it's the right size. When we roll the bubble onto the tray with the pieces of cane, it all lays on there equally and there's no gaps. So they're lining up those two pieces to put them all together once they're both ready. And that will create a striped pattern on our piece. If anyone joined us late and didn't hear me explaining what we're making, since it's June, we're doing Pride Month themed pieces today. We're making pitchers, like lemonade pitchers. This is our glass hot shop team. They're gonna make these pitchers and then they're gonna get sold into the gift shop here at the Museum of Glass. So they just did their cane roll-up. Now those bits of color are striped onto the bubble of clear glass. Trent is gonna melt in all of that glass so that it's smooth to the surface, and then we can twist it and blow it and stretch it into a pitcher. This big barrel of fire they keep going into is called the reheating chamber or the glory hole. Can we see the diagram of that up on the screen, please? So the glory hole or the reheating chamber is also powered by natural gas and forced air. It's used to reheat the glass to keep it from breaking, and its temperature is kept at 2,300 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's a little bit hotter than the furnace, but that's because as we blow the glass out, we stretch it and we manipulate it. As it stretches and gets thinner, it gets colder. The thinner the glass is, the faster it cools. And if it gets too cold, it will break. So we have to reheat the glass continually to keep it in this certain temperature range so that we can shape it, but also keep it from breaking. So the reheating chambers get turned on and off each day, but the furnaces stay on all the time to keep the glass molten. So Gabe in the black hat is now twisting the cane that we have on there to create a spiral. So the color, instead of being straight lines, they're going to be twisted all the way around the piece. And glass blowing is really like a team sport. So you have your gaffer, which is the lead glass blower, and then you have the assistants. So Gabe is our gaffer, and his assistants today are Trent and Sarah. And they're all going to work together to make this pitcher. Glass blowing is like a team sport, and the team captain is called the gaffer. So Gabe is the one designing the piece, and the other two are assisting him, Sarah and Trent, making it all happen. So when the glass is hot, it all looks orange. As the glass cools, you'll see those colors come out. It's going to be a rainbow pattern, but right now it all kind of looks orange because of the temperature. It needs to be hot enough to blow the glass and shape it, and then the colors tend to hide behind that heat. So they just cut off the end of the piece because those cane roll-up pieces didn't wrap all the way to the end. So they twisted it and they cut off the end so that those cane pieces met at a point that's going to be the bottom of the piece. So they twisted the pattern, they cut off the end where there's no pattern showing, And now they're going to start blowing the glass to shape it into our pitcher shape. So the tip of the bubble that's farthest from the pipe is going to be the bottom. And the top of the piece is going to be closest to the head of the pipe, just so you have an idea of what you're watching. They're making this sideways at the bench. So Gabe will be heating the glass up, sitting at the bench and shaping it with some hand tools. While he's doing that, he'll have Sarah blow into the pipe, which will inflate the glass. So it's really a team sport. Each time Gabe gets up to heat the glass up in the reheating chamber, that means the glass is too cold. So our working window isn't very long. It's like less than a minute. And if you wait too long, the glass will break when you put it back in the fire. So there's a sort of internal clock these guys have while they're working to make sure the glass doesn't get too cold. If it breaks, then the only thing you can really do is start over. So they want to definitely make sure that it stays up to temperature. That way the glass doesn't get shocked and broken. And you probably can't really hear him, but Gabe is telling Sarah when to blow into the pipe and when to stop blowing. When she blows into the pipe, you can see the glass inflating, so it's stretching and getting thinner. And Gabe is controlling which part of the glass is hotter by using this tool in his hand. That's just a newspaper folded up and soaked in water. So a wet pad of paper is helping him control which part of the glass is stretching and which part is not moving. The water that's soaked into the newspaper creates steam. So there's a thin layer of steam in between the newspaper and the glass. And that's why his hand isn't getting hot holding that tool. Right now he's using a tool called the jacks. The jacks are carving in a jack line, which is a restriction line right off the head of the pipe. That's the top of the piece. So that line is like a score mark so we can get the piece off the pipe later. No matter what shape, size, color thing we're making, it has to have a way to come off the pipe. So every piece they make will have that jack line carved in at some point. But yeah, now you can see how this is starting to take shape. The bottom of the piece is what's farthest from the pipe, and that line they just carved in is the top. They're mostly going to focus on the bottom of the piece right now, kind of shaping it up. Once the bottom is the shape that they like, they'll take the piece off the blowpipe to work on the top of the piece. So if you can't really get a good view of them, if you look up on the screen, you can see better what they're doing. They're flattening the bottom of the piece right now. So Trent has a dry wood paddle that he's using to push the bottom flat. Gabe has the jacks that are on the side, keeping that shape nice and symmetrical. And then Sarah was trapping the air in the pipe. That's called capping. That gives us air pressure to push against to really flatten the bottom of the piece. So now the bottom is pretty much done. They're going to add a little bit more glass on the bottom, something called a cookie. It's going to look like a little cookie of glass on the bottom. It's like a little extra bit of glass down there. This little bit of extra glass on the bottom is going to allow them to transfer the piece off the blowpipe and onto a different one. They'll attach another rod with a small amount of glass onto that little cookie, and then they'll break the piece off the blowpipe to flip it around and work on the other end. So the punty, P-U-N-T-Y, is the rod that will transfer the glass onto. So Sarah is getting our punty, or our transfer rod, ready to attach to the bottom of the piece. Once that little bit of glass is attached to the bottom of the piece, we can remove it from the blowpipe by breaking it on the jack line that we carved in earlier. So this part is all about temperature and timing. They've got to line up their temperature and timing so that this works. If the temperature and timing is wrong, the transfer will not work. So this comes with a lot of practice, a lot of trial and error, learning what the right temperature and timing is. Gabe was using this torch called a fluffy torch to equalize the temperature of the whole thing. The part closest to the pipe is a little bit colder because it's the end of the piece is the first thing in the fire and the last thing out. So it's a lot hotter than the part closer to the pipe. So this torch is just helping heat up the top part that's not as hot as the bottom part. That way when we remove it from the punty, or when we remove it from the pipe and transfer it to the punty, it doesn't send a crack down the side. But we're getting ready to do our transfer here. They'll all meet at the bench and they'll attach the punty rod to the bottom of the piece, right on that little cookie they added to the bottom. Hot glass sticks to hot glass, so the punty's attached. To get it off the blowpipe, at the right temperature, if you put a drop of water on the glass, it creates a very small crack. So they're going to crack the glass by putting water on the jack line. That creates a weak spot, so they can tap on the blowpipe, which sends vibrations into the weak spot that breaks the glass in that spot. So they're going to break it in a controlled way, right there. Now they've flipped the piece around, they can work on the top while the punty's attached to the bottom. So typically making vessels of any type, you do this punty transfer, working on half of it while it's on the blowpipe, transferring it to the punty and working on the other half now that it's flipped around. We'll take it off the punty the same way they just got it off the blowpipe when they're done with the piece. But that punty connection is very small, so they have to be careful not to set the pipe down too hard on the rails. That vibration will go into that connection and break it off. So they're centering up where they attached it, and now they can start working on the top of the piece. The bubble they were blowing is the inside of the vase, and there's an opening at the top, so it's hollow. They can reach on the inside and start changing that shape. They had to get it pretty cold, though, to break it off the blowpipe. So this heat is usually the longer one because they need to be the coldest part of the glass to be the hottest part, and that just takes a minute, letting them build up that temperature inside the reheating chamber. But once it's hot enough, Gabe will sit down and clean up the edge where they broke it off the pipe, and then they'll change the shape to finish it into a little pitcher. If you just joined us recently, the team is making pitchers today. They're making all kinds of pride-related things because it is June. So we're using a lot of rainbow patterns. All the pieces they make today will be sold at the gift shop. All the pitchers they've already made are sitting in what's called the annealing oven, which is that big black box over there. Glass goes through a molecular change as it cools, so that has to be done in a controlled way. So everything in the annealer is going to cool down slowly overnight. So when it comes out tomorrow, they'll send it to the gift shop. The length of time the glass anneals is usually determined by how thick it is. So if these are blown pieces, the glass isn't very thick. So overnight is probably good for these, but if you made a solid paperweight that's just solid glass, it would need to be in there more like 2 days. Because we have to let the glass anneal so that the inside of it cools at the same rate as the outside. Because if they cool at different rates, then it cracks from thermal shock. So the glass has to all cool at the same temperature. So it just depends on how thick the glass is, how long it anneals. Yeah. If the glass is left out here and it doesn't cool in the annealer, then it breaks. So everything we make that we want to stay in one piece has to anneal. So Sarah is taking a hollow steel tube and going into our furnace, scooping glass out the same way you get honey out of a jar with a stick. She's got a little bit of clear glass on the end of our blowpipe. She's going to get a bubble started in there, and that's going to be the handle that gets attached to our pitcher. So Gabe has the body of the pitcher. Sarah's getting the handle ready. When both pieces are the right temperature, they'll bring them to the bench, meet in the middle, and add them together. So we're going to make a hollow handle. That way it's not super heavy. So Sarah's going to blow a bubble into the glass, heat this up, and bring it over to Gabe so that he can attach it to the piece. The way that Sarah got the bubble in the glass is called blowing and capping. You blow air into the pipe and you trap the air inside the pipe. The air that's trapped in the pipe builds pressure and forces its way out into the glass, and that forms a bubble inside the glass. So we're going to add that bubble to our piece to make a hollow handle. That's going to happen in just a few seconds. So hot glass sticks to hot glass. They'll attach those two bits of glass together. Use some shears to cut the glass off of the pipe that it's on. And while it's hot, you can sculpt it into a handle. And then you just melt those two bits of glass together so that they fuse, and now we have a handle. So they're going to use this torch for that little connection to make sure it really fuses all the way on there. And now there's a handle. All that's left is to make a spout on our pitcher. So they're going to superheat a specific part of the glass. That way they can carve out that spout shape. Since the glass is a lot thinner, now that we've blown and stretched it out, you can see that color pattern starting to come out. We've got a rainbow pattern that's kind of twisting all the way down the side of the piece. And they've made a couple of these today. These pictures are going to be sold at the gift shop here at the museum. But before we can put them in the gift shop, they have to go through what's called the annealing process. So everything made in the studio has to anneal, which basically means it has to cool down slowly. If the glass cools too quickly, it breaks. So we have to cool it slowly in what's called the annealing oven, which is that big black box on the side of the studio. So we're pretty much done with the piece. They're just using the torch to make sure the bottom of it isn't too cold. That way we can remove the punty and put it into the oven. So we've got to take this piece off the stick. We're going to shock the connection of the bit of glass that's on the end of the rod. It's attached to the bottom of the piece. So we've got to make sure all of that is the same temperature. That way we can put a drop of water on that bit of glass to break it off and remove the piece from the stick. So they're giving it some maintenance heats called a flash to make sure the whole thing is a good temperature before they try to break the punty. So a little drop of water will get strategically placed right where the punty meets the glass, and that will shock the connection. As long as they did it right, they can they'll tap on the pipe, and it will remove the punty. It'll leave a little sharp spot where the punty comes off, so they'll torch the sharp spot to melt the sharp edges. And then we'll load this away into our annealing oven. It'll come out tomorrow morning as a bright, colorful, rainbow patterned pitcher. So melting that punty connection so it's not sharp, we're gonna grab it with some Kevlar wrapped tongs, which is a heat resistant material, so that we can load it into our annealing oven where it'll stay overnight, systematically cooling down so that the molecules can arrange themselves in a way where the glass is not stressed out. But let's give the team a big hand for another pitcher. Great. So they're going to start setting up to make another one. If you missed the beginning of that one, you'll get to see the start of the next one. But it'll take them a couple minutes to get all that set up. So while we're waiting, I can make a couple announcements for anyone that just joined us recently. So we have a live stream. If you're ever curious to know what's happening here in the Hot Shop, we live stream the process online from Wednesday to Sunday, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. at museumofglass.org under the Hot Shop tab. Or in YouTube, we have a Museum of Glass channel that also does the live streaming. We also have Family Day every second Saturday of the month. Join us here at the museum for Family Day activities hosted by the education team. There's also Third Thursday, every third Thursday of the month. The Museum of Glass is open and free to the public from 5 to 8 p.m. Hilltop artists demonstrate their skill set here on the Hot Shop floor. And the Hilltop Artists is a local youth organization dedicated to enhancing the lives of the youth through the medium of glass. So if we could please see the Hilltop Artists video, you can learn more about that program.
Hi, I'm Zane Scott. I am a programs manager at Hilltop Artists, and I am born and raised in Tacoma, Washington.
I'm Katie. I'm from Tacoma, and I've been in the Hilltop Artists program for 2 years now.
We're here at the Museum of Glass for our annual Hilltop Artist Residency, and we're making centerpieces for our Better Futures Luncheon, which is our big fundraiser for the year. This year is a little special. It's Hilltop's 30th anniversary, so we're making mica bottles to commemorate the original Hilltop crew making bottles, and hopefully the mica sparkles will make them a little bit special.
I really like the design this year. The bottles are super like elegant, and there's a lot of variation in the shapes. It's really fun. It's like a great way to meet a lot of people. We all have a great time when we're working. So the program has helped a lot of kids over the years kind of find an outlet for themselves. It's great to, even if you're not like wanting to be a glassblower in life, it's great because it teaches you all like life skills that you're gonna need.
It's really rewarding. I see myself in all the students, so going back and trying to give them all the pointers that I felt like really helped me grow up and become more mature and responsible and confident.
Being with so many like instructors and so many kids that are like, they're in the same place as you, they're just trying to learn new things. It's a super nice way to grow.
Katie has been a great student, spent the last year on the flame working side of production, and is now switched over to the glass blowing side for this year, and is already exceeding, is one of like a great student, super kind, super helpful.
Yeah, it's super comforting to know that if this is the path I want to take in life, that there's a good transition between that.
Yeah, working with the museum has been, I would say, almost life-changing. It's working with them is seeing the best of the best and seeing how it's done, and seeing it like local too is really cool as for a local kid to see that like you have some of the best in your neighborhood, your backyard to go check out and learn from, and they're all so cool and kind, and I've learned so much as a glass blower and a person, and I also think the team learns from the students, and they keep them young, and it's just a fun learning experience for everyone. you can do a lot. Like, there's a lot that you can do here, and just believe in yourself, and you'll be all right.
So we're getting set up to do another cane roll-up. So these lines of colored glass that Gabe is lining up on this tray are pieces of cane, different colors. You roll them up onto a clear bubble of glass, and that gives you stripe patterns on your piece. So they're getting set up to add these to another clear bubble so that we can make another picture. So that, the way it's lined up on the tray right now, gives you an idea of what the colors will look like on the piece. The clear glass is made of soda ash, silica, and limestone. So the silica used to come from sand, but now we get it from quartz because it's cleaner, so it's clear glass. That's why old like Coke bottles and stuff used to look green, because the silica was impure and dirty from sand. But now it's clear. It's mostly silica, but the soda ash and limestone added to that makes it easier for us to work with to do what we're doing. There's different chemical makeups for different kinds of glass. So this is a soda lime silicate glass. Yeah.
Like industrial glass bottles, like just your average jam jars and stuff.
So right now our team is working on the far left side of the studio. They're making the bubble of clear glass that we're gonna roll up onto our cane over here. So they're gonna take the bubble and roll it like this over the cane, which is gonna make those stick to the outside to create the stripes. So this is a chunk from the earlier piece. This gives you an idea of what the color pattern will look like. So it'll look kind of like this, rainbow patterns. I can't let you touch it because it's sharp. I know. But this is what it shows how the colors will look, if you can see this from all the way up there. yeah. This is the color pattern that they're working with. And we can see the cane all rolled up on this tray is going to end up looking like this on the glass. Oh, you can see it on the screen. There you go. So this is what that cane roll-up will turn into on the glass, is these stripes. Those pieces on the ground are cut-offs from earlier ones. Those won't really make it into the final pieces. There's always a little bit of byproduct with every piece that you make. But you could reuse those pieces if they wanted to. They could heat them back up and make them into something. But for those of you that just joined us, we're making pitchers, like lemonade pitchers. And since it's June, we're doing Pride Month patterns, so we're doing rainbow patterns on our pitchers. This morning, the team made a bunch of what's called cane, which are those sticks of colored glass. We're gonna do what's called a cane roll-up, which is exactly what it sounds like. We're gonna roll the cane up onto the clear glass to make a striped pattern. So they've made a couple of these pitchers today. They're just getting started on making another one. We've got clear glass on the end of this rod over here that Trent has. He's got the long sleeve black shirt on. He's cooling the pipe right now in our pipe cooler, which is just like a water trough that cools the metal so we can hold the metal up higher, which gives you more control. All the glass on the end of that rod looks orange, but that's because of the temperature. That's all clear glass. We've got some calipers, which is measuring the width of the bubble to make sure that it's the right width to pick up all these pieces of cane to where they're all evenly spaced out. So we're doing our cane roll up right now, rolling up the cane onto the bubble of clear glass. Hot glass sticks to other hot glass. So those little bits of cane were heated up on that tray, rolled up onto the bubble, and now we're gonna melt it all together to start to blow the glass. This table is called a marver, M-A-R-V-E-R. The marver is used to shape and cool the glass. So they're shaping those bits of cane so that they stick to the bubble. There's a little bit of the end of that bubble that doesn't have any of the color pattern on it, so they're gonna cut that part off. That way all those pieces of cane come to a point, and that pattern goes all the way down to the bottom of the piece. So it's a team effort here. Gabe is our gaffer, or our lead glass blower. He's the one with the piece right now. He's gonna shape it up and twist that pattern so that the cane twists into a pattern all the way down the piece. And then the whole team here is gonna sit at the bench and use these different tools to shape the glass. So Gabe is the gaffer. He's got Trent and Sarah helping him out today because glass blowing is really like a team sport. But glass blowing is like a team sport, and the gaffer is the team captain. So Gabe is the team captain here, kind of directing the show of what we're making, what we're doing. But right now he's twisting up those cane patterns so that instead of straight lines, we have a spiraled pattern of the color. When glass is hot, you can use the friction and the torque of the glass on that table to twist it to make those patterns. So when Gabe sits at the bench and starts using the tools to shape the glass, Sarah will be over here blowing into the pipe to inflate the glass. Gabe just used a mold to help further twist that pattern. So Sarah will blow into the pipe, Gabe will shape the glass, and Trent will assist Gabe however he needs him to, whether it's shielding his hands from the radiating heat coming off the glass, or handing him a tool that he needs, or just getting his tools ready. You won't be able to hear him, but Gabe will be telling Sarah when to blow into the pipe, when to stop blowing, and just generally communicating whatever he needs to be done while he's sitting at the bench. So there's a lot of communication going on with glass blowing because it's usually something done with a group of people. You can make things by yourself, but you're very limited to what you can do on your own. So the more people are on the team, the more you can accomplish. The team here is making these pictures today, which 3 people is plenty for this type of work. Gabe is using what's called the reheating chamber, or the glory hole right now. It's run on natural gas and forced air. It's like a big barrel of fire that reheats the glass. So each time he stands up to go to the reheating chamber, the glass is too cold. So it's got to get hotter to do the next move. Each time Gabe heats the glass up in the reheating chamber, he's heating it up specifically geared towards the next move that he wants to do on the glass. His working window is like less than a minute each time. So he'll heat the glass up, do the move that he needs to do, and then he'll have to heat the glass up again. It's pretty much back and forth between sitting at the bench, shaping the glass, and reheating it in our reheating chamber. If the glass gets too cold, it will break. So we have to make sure it stays in this window of heat. That way it doesn't break. If it gets really hot, it just moves around a lot and it's harder to control. But if it gets really cold, it can crack when you try to heat it back up. That's called thermal shock. Oh, they were squirting water into the furnace just now. The water pops all the bubbles that are on the surface of the pool of glass so that when they scoop glass out, they don't get a bunch of bubbles in there. Yeah. The only bubble they want in there is the one that they're blowing, but bubbles sometimes get created in the furnace from scooping glass out of it. So the water sprayed into the surface pops all the bubbles. That way they don't get a bunch of bubbles on the surface of their glass. Yeah. What Gabe is doing right now is called carving in the jack line. He's using a tool called the jacks to carve in a line that's right off the head of the pipe. That line is the top of the piece. It's also like a score mark, so we can get the piece off the pipe later in the process. No matter what shape, size, or color piece of work you're making, you have to be able to get it off the pipe. So that line is essential and crucial to every piece that you make. You have to have the jack line to get the piece off the pipe. So the jack line is the top of the piece. The tip of the bubble will be the bottom of the piece. So you're watching them make this sideways. They'll mostly be focusing on the bottom of the piece now that they've got that jack line established. But they'll eventually take the piece off the blowpipe to be able to work on the top. So Sarah is blowing and inflating the glass while Gabe is shaping it with a wet pad of newspaper. That wet pad of newspaper creates steam in between the paper and the glass, and that's really what's changing its shape and controlling the temperature. Trent has a drywood paddle he's using to shield Gabe's arm from the radiating heat coming off the glass. Even when you're not touching the glass. If it's really hot and your hands are close to it, you could get blisters or burns from getting too close to it. So we've got a shield that we can put in between your arm and the glass. That way that doesn't happen. Makes it a little easier to work with the glass. And now all three of these guys are working together to flatten the bottom of the piece. Sarah is trapping the air inside the pipe, which gives the other two air pressure to push on to create the bottom of the piece, to flatten it. So they're pushing on the bottom with the drywood paddle and pushing on the sides with the blades of the jacks, and that creates that shape for the bottom of the piece. So now the bottom of the piece is done. They'll work on the top next, so they're going to start preparing for that. So they're going to put what's called a cookie on the bottom of the piece. It's just a little bit of extra clear glass. So they added that little bit of clear glass, and they're squishing it down into a flat spot so it looks like a little cookie on the bottom. They're going to transfer this piece off of the blowpipe that it's on and onto a different rod so that they can flip it around and work on the top. And that is called the punty transfer. The transfer rod is called the punty. So we're going to get a punty rod ready and attach it to the bottom of the piece where they just put that bit of glass. They'll attach the punty to that little cookie, and then they'll break the glass off the blowpipe, which will transfer it to the punty, and we can work on the top. So they're lining up their temperature and timing to make that happen. Temperature and timing is really important in glass blowing for some of these different processes. So Sarah has our punty. She's going to shape that little bit of glass up, kind of like the end of a Q-tip, so that we can attach it to the bottom of the piece. Gabe is using what's called a fluffy torch that is equalizing the temperature of the top of the piece with the bottom. The top or the bottom of the piece is the first thing in the fire and the last thing out, so it gets hotter than the rest of the piece. They're trying to equalize the temperature of the whole thing before they break it off the blowpipe. That way it doesn't send a crack down the side of the piece. They're just lining up all the temperature and timing to make this work. And we're just about ready to do our transfer. Once they transfer the piece to our punty rod that Sarah has, they'll be able to shape the top of it into our pitcher shape, add a handle to it, and finish up the piece. We've made a couple of these pitchers today, and they're all sitting inside of what's called the annealing oven. As glass cools, it goes through a molecular change, so that has to be done in a controlled way. The annealing process cools the glass down slowly so that it doesn't break. So all the pieces we've made are in this annealing oven, which is that big black box on the side of the studio. Everything's going to go in there and cool down slowly overnight. But we're doing our punty transfer now. We've attached the punty rod. To get it off the blowpipe at the right temperature, you put water on the jack line right there, and it cracks the glass. You tap on the blowpipe, and it breaks off the pipe from those little cracks. And now the piece is flipped around. We can work on the top. So the team here is going to show you in just a second how we're going to finish off the top of the shape. You've got to make sure that punty connection is in the right spot, so they're going to adjust it a little bit. And then they'll start heating up the top half of the piece to get it hot enough that we can change that shape. So when glass is hot enough, you can take scissors and cut through it. So they're going to trim off the uneven part of the glass that was removed from the blowpipe where it kind of broke unevenly. They'll cut that off with some shears, and that will make the top of the piece nice and uniform and a little bit cleaner. So this next time they heat up the glass might take a little bit longer just because they need to get the top of the piece extra hot to be able to cut through the glass. You can tell how hot the glass is by the color and the movement. We couldn't tell you the exact temperature, but you can get a general idea of how hot the glass is based on how much it's moving and if it's glowing orange. The more orange it's glowing, the hotter it is. So they're getting ready to put a handle on here. We've got the body of our pitcher made. We just got to get the handle and the spout put on there. So Sarah got a little bit of clear glass out of our furnace. She's going to blow a bubble into that and shape it up so that we can attach it to the piece to make our handle. We're going to have a hollow handle on the piece. So she's got to get a bubble established in there. And then she'll bring it over to Gabe and they'll attach it to the piece. He'll sculpt it into a handle. So she's doing what's called blowing and capping. She trapped air in the pipe, which built pressure and expanded into the bubble that went out into the glass. So it's really physics how you get that bubble started. You trap air in the pipe and it forces its way out into the glass. But now there's a bubble in there. She's just got to get it the right shape and the right temperature. She'll bring it over to Gabe at the bench and they'll add it to the piece to create our handle for our pitcher. Glass is stretchy when it's hot, so they're going to attach it, pull it, and stretch it, and bend it while it's hot to create the handle. So he'll fine tune that handle up a little bit, and the last thing we got to do is get a spout on our pitcher. Once the pitcher is finished, we'll take it off of the pipe that it's on by shocking the connection and then breaking it off that little bit of glass that's connected to the pipe. If we leave the piece out here to cool down, it'll get too cold too quickly and it will crack. So we have to put it into the annealing oven so that it can cool down slowly over time. That process is called annealing. So our annealing oven is that big black box on the edge of the studio. It sits at about 950 degrees, which is a resting temperature for the glass. At the end of the day, when the annealer is full of all the pieces we're making and they're done blowing glass, they'll start the program that's going to systematically cool it down overnight. So tomorrow we can take everything that we make today out of the annealer and see how they did. But if it cools too quickly, it breaks. That's why we have to anneal the glass so that it stays in one piece. But you can see the color pattern a little better now that the glass is a little bit thinner. So they just finished up the shape. They're just making sure that it's the right temperature before they take it off of the pipe. If it's too cold, it'll crack. If it's too hot, it won't come off. So they're just making sure it's the right temperature. That way they can remove it from the pipe and put it into the annealing oven. To take it off, they shock the connection with water, which creates cracks. And then at the right temperature, they'll tap on the pipe and it should just come right off. Boop. That leaves a sharp spot, so they're going to melt the sharp spot. But we'll grab this with some Kevlar wrap tongs and load it into the annealing oven. Just got to get our stamp on there. Let's give this team a hand for another vase in the annealer. Go team. Great. Well, if you missed the beginning, we're going to make another one. They just got to get set up for the next one. So that'll just take a couple minutes.
And we'll come in 2 days and buy that one.
Yeah, while the team sets up for the next piece, I'll make some announcements. Oh, just kidding. We're going to take a lunch. But if you want to stick around, we'll be playing a documentary about Paul Stankard. If you've seen some of the pieces out in the gallery of the floral pieces that are encased in clear glass, that's Paul Stankard's work. So if you want to learn more about how he makes those pieces, during lunch, while we're on our lunch, we'll play a documentary